Hello, it's Cindy from the Holistic Parenting and Sleep Center. I hope you all are doing well. Today's video is about the 4-month sleep regression and is my baby in it? Does it even exist? So if you're interested in the idea of regressions, you can check out my other video on are sleep regressions real? My thought is I don't think they are. And we're going to talk specifically about the 4-month regression because this is probably the biggest one that I hear people talk about and where the biggest amount of stuff is happening with your child. So in order to understand the idea of the 4-month sleep regression, we need to first understand what's happening with our baby at 4 months old and before 4 months old. So let's back up a little bit and talk about newborn sleep. So in a nutshell, newborn sleep is really disorganized, really chaotic, doesn't follow a lot of patterns, can be all over the place. When my son was a newborn, my first son, we had so much fun just putting him in his little carrier, going out to brunch. He would sleep in the carrier. Everyone would say how adorable he was. We'd have a fantastic time, and then we'd go home. Would he be able to do that after 4 months old? Probably not. So what does this mean, newborn sleep? So newborns have very underdeveloped regulatory and other systems in their bodies. So they have underdeveloped circadian rhythms for one. So what this means is a newborn needs to borrow the regulatory ability of its caregiver's circadian rhythm. So co-regulation is something that I think is amazing and something that I talk a lot about. What is co-regulation? It's where when 2 or more people are in close proximity for a long time, their bodies start to work together. And for newborns, this is really important because newborns need close proximity to an adult caregiver for the majority of the day because they have so many immature systems. So immature digestion, circulation, respiration, immune system, probably emotional regulation system if you want to call it that, and then sleep systems or circadian rhythm. So when our newborns are by us, they're using our heartbeats to get their heart to beat at a certain rhythm. They're using our breathing to help regulate their own breathing. They're using our immune system to help regulate their immune system. And this is the same as with the circadian rhythm. And part of the reason this is so is because newborns do not produce sufficient melatonin to be able to regulate their own circadian rhythms. So if newborns are breastfed, they're going to get melatonin through breast milk, or if they're fed pumped breast milk or something like that. If newborns are formula fed, unfortunately, they don't get that little bit of melatonin, but there are still things that formula fed or feeding parents can do to help with their baby's circadian rhythms. So this is why newborns just sort of sleep wherever, whenever, because they don't have a developed sleep architecture or a developed sleep system the way we do after we're 4 months old. And when does this all start to develop? Between the ages of 3 and 4 months, which is when the infamous 3 and 4 month regression happens. So at this time, babies' sleep cycles start to change and they start to get longer and actually are developed. They start to produce their own melatonin so they can start to regulate their sleep cycles. They start to be aware of or influenced by cycles of light and dark, where before they're 4 months old or 3 months old, this isn't the case. So us as post 4-month-old humans, when it's light outside, our brain knows to wake up. When it's dark outside, our brain knows to go to sleep. Infants don't have this ability, but with the introduction of melatonin, they start to have this ability. Their tummies are also getting bigger, so they can hold a little bit more food. So that's going to change how and when they sleep and how frequently they wake up. Another thing that starts to happen is their biological systems start to fall into a predictable rhythm, and they start to have sleep that is more distinct. Where newborns' sleep is all kind of jumbly, they start to have more distinctive phases of sleep, which means that when they get to an end of a sleep cycle, they're going to wake up more than they would if they were a newborn. And so this is where we see a lot of the night waking happen with babies around 4 months old, where before, they didn't have really as distinctive sleep cycles with a wave like what we have as we're older. But then they start to develop these cycles where, they've slept 45 minutes, which is one sleep cycle, and then they're ready to wake up. They've slept another 45 minutes, and then they're ready to wake up. Or maybe they can link two sleep cycles together. So they've slept an hour and a half, and they're ready to wake up. And so this is where we see a lot of that frequent night waking happening with babies once they turn 3 or 4 months old. So this is the perfect time to really start working on schedules and habits and patterns and things like this, because babies are able to learn at this point. Babies are able to learn even from 6 or 8 weeks old. So we can start working on routines. We can start working on having an established wake-up time in the morning, which is going to help that circadian rhythm keep developing. We can start working on exposing them to light in the morning and exposing them to dark when it's ready to when it's time to go to bed. So there's all these things, all of these biological changes that are really happening. What else happens to babies when they turn about 3 or 4 months old? They get out of that gooey 4th trimester newborn phase. I like to call it gooey babies. And they start being alert and looking around a lot more. And they're like, oh my gosh, look at that. Oh my gosh, look at that. So they're learning so many things, and sleep just isn't as interesting anymore. Another thing that can happen when babies start to be 4 months old is they start getting to the point where they're rolling over. Rolling over can really disrupt sleep, especially if your baby rolls and gets stuck and isn't able to roll back over the other way. So all different things that are combining all at one time in your little young baby's life that make it look like, sleep is starting to fall apart. But in reality, sleep is just changing. It's evolving, and it's becoming a lot more like the sleep that your baby's going to have when they're a toddler or an adult even already. So to become aware that the 4-month regression isn't really about losing anything. It's about gaining things along the journey to more adult sleep. And like I always like to say, sleep development is not linear. It doesn't start at A and end at Z. It keeps coming back, and babies keep learning things differently at different ages. They might learn the same thing many different times, but it has a different meaning at a different age. So when your baby is in the 4-month phase or the 3.5-month phase or whatever it is that you notice that their sleep starts to change, don't worry that they're in a regression. Be excited about the fact that they're developing into their more permanent sleep architecture. And think about this as an opportunity to actually really start making changes and putting in foundations for really a lifetime of better sleep. So I hope you found that helpful. Can stop using this term 4-month sleep regression and just start thinking about it as the 4-month developmental progression. And as always, if you need any more help, please feel free to reach out at cindy@holisticsleepcenter.com.